Hey, Kiara. Good to see you here.
Hey, hi everybody. I finally made it.
Yes. Um, in fact, I don't know if you know Kiara, but she was also at Data Tech Texas. So we've got the Austin crew coming out.
Yeah. Woo woo.
Very nice to meet
Mm.
you, Kira.
Nice to meet y'all as well.
You need to present at other places.
I am going to Postgres conference in, I think it's like next week, the week after. You'd think I'd know my schedule at this point, but I don't. And
Day
I
by day.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that would be interested in this because Postgres is like a lot of folks were eager to move away from Postgres for a lot of these AI ML use cases. And now we're kind of coming back to it. We're like, you know what? Why fix something that wasn't broken to begin with? So, okay, I think we can get started. A lot of awesome folks are here today. Hi, everybody. My name's Lisa. I help facilitate this meeting, and sometimes I do some work, but really Roxanne is the backbone of this initiative, to be honest. She
No,
helps
it's
do
all
so much
Lisa.
for us. And yeah, I figured that we could start with a quick round of introductions just to get some new folks acclimated, and so that we all kind of know who's in the call today, so I can get started. Yeah, like I said, my name is Lisa. I work on product and sort of like open source stuff at a company called Data and we do an open source data catalog. And one of the things that I'm really interested in is sort of the use cases for metadata to empower a lot of these different workflows and to enable a lot of different things within the data community that I think are quite manual at the moment. And yeah, I am very interested in kind of helping bring together resources and do some knowledge sharing. I'll pass it off to anybody else who wants to take the reign, but yeah.
I'll go next. I'm Roxanne. I work for the Continuous Delivery Foundation. I do all of the background stuff. So if you have a blog post, I'll be posting it and all that jazz. If you have questions, you can always reach me on Slack or here or by email. Yeah.
I'm Vivek. I manage the data operations team, and I'm very passionate about wanting to set the pace and tone for what data operations should look like because it's such a new field. Every company has DevOps, every company has database systems. Those are things which everybody knows. But when it comes to DevOps, that is often, okay, what do you do? What value do you bring to the company and things like that? So I'm passionate about bringing the latest and greatest and trying to set that manifesto. So I'm hoping to learn a few things and share a few.
I can go next. I'm Kiara. I'm currently a Kubernetes software engineer at IBM, basically working on helping to maintain the infrastructure for 58 of our cloud services currently. Before that, I've been at IBM for a while now, but I was a DevOps and SRE engineer also for another cloud service at IBM. And I also do a lot of data engineering and architecture consulting. So I've been in the process of trying to bridge the gap between the two because I really like data, and I really like DevOps and Kubernetes. So hopefully trying to work to push the DataOps just like everyone else is here, and then also just really understanding running data on Kubernetes as well too. So I've been working on those things.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is Victor Liu. I'm been working in a database field for 30 years, including 17 years at Oracle. So yes, this is interested in open source and anything open AI actually.
Awesome. Jesse, if you're there, we'd love to hear an introduction, but if not, then that's okay too. And I think Jesse might be muted or have us. So if
No
if they come
pressure.
online, we can get the there we go.
Thanks.
Mic isn't working. Okay. I'm gonna read this if that's okay with you, Jesse. Jesse's mic is not working at the moment, unfortunately. So I'm Jesse, a former IT program manager for the Air Force and data analyst at the Department of Veteran Affairs. Just looking to learn and hear. Awesome. Well, that's a really exciting background. I'm glad that we have such a different diversity here. So one of the things that I love about this group is that a lot of people have different pieces of data ops that they're working on or that they're looking at, and it's like the applications are so wide in terms of the piece of the cake that we have. And so to see these different like personas come together, I think is really exciting. And so I think that the data ops initiative is something that we all own and that we're all ambassadors of. And so I know that everybody here is on their own doing their own sort of initiatives and thought leadership around this area. So this is just really a forum to have those ideas together. We have some updates for the group, and then I kind of want to go over some of the other things that we want to bring for the future as well. So we can share my screen so we can get our meeting on. So if you have not had a chance to look at this document, it is in the let's see if we can paste it in the chat here so that people can add their names. But generally speaking, it is usually in the meeting minutes. And if you're on the Slack, we do post it there as well. But if you just look at the calendar invite, it should be linked. So if you ever want to come back to this, if you want to look at previous recordings, not that I think you're not busy enough as it is already, but you're always more than welcome to come take a look at what we've been discussing in case you miss one. I know that we run these bi-weekly. So if you want to put your name as an attendee here, please do. I think it helps us to track, attendance and to see who's interested and who is present at what meeting. So we've done introductions and we talked last time about doing a landing page review. And Roxanne, I don't know if you want to go over that and show the group what you've put together. And
Yeah, we can do that after if you want.
yeah,
Then I'll
let's
share
do
my
that.
screen.
Awesome. The next thing that I want to go over is that we're going to have an upcoming webinar. This is one that if you've been to Data Day Texas, then you know the exact talk. I would not recommend going to it. But generally speaking, I think that I would like to share and kind of put this out a little bit more just for folks to see. So one of the things that I want to get feedback on, because I think that we have a couple people who came to this talk already, was that a lot of that talk was around, really kind of tailoring it to a data engineering audience. And now that we have some DevOps folks in there, I'm not sure how much you remember from it, but if there's any topics or pieces of feedback that we can do to make this more interesting to a DevOps audience, because I think there's some really basic things that we go in there that maybe are not necessarily relevant to DevOps engineers, like what is declarative programming. I'd love to hear some thoughts. I'm opening it up to the floor to see what folks say. Let me see as well. Maybe we can pull up the slides so that we can give people a bit of a refresher too. Let me go here. So yeah, I'd love to nail down some of these flows and topics for folks to kind of see. Generally speaking, I think that what we do is that we go over the very beginning of just like what is DevOps and DataOps, and we focus a lot on sort of like parsing out these pieces and discussing technical debt versus data debt. I think one of the things that I would want to hear the group's take on is one, how deeply into data platforming we should go. So in your guys' experience, how much do DevOps engineers understand data platform? And is this something that we should go into the very bare bone basics of, or is this something that we should discuss at a very high level?
Oh, 1 second. I'm looking at the slides because I can probably give some input on this.
Yeah.
Back to, okay, here it is. Let me zoom in. So, I mean, I think it probably would be good for them to understand the data platform because we understand things typically from an application or microservices point of view, but trying to understand how that ties into how microservices would work for a data platform would probably be useful. So I think that's good.
Okay, that's really fantastic feedback, actually. Yeah, because I think usually when we're doing this to a data engineering audience, it's what even are like what is a traditional platform and what are microservices? Because all the stuff that you're building is being deployed as them, but you're not maintaining them. Whereas this is okay, you know that microservices exist, but you don't know which microservices actually comprise the data platform, right? Fantastic. That's really valuable feedback. Thank you. And would you say that many of them know or understand, and like kind of what you've seen as well, the data pipeline steps, like the data processing and the quality checks, and maybe like batch versus streaming workloads, things like that?
They probably don't know that. I think that because from a CI/CD part of perspective, you should probably show the steps like of CI/CD, but show
Mhm.
where those parts of what is it called? The basically the data pipeline fit into a CI/CD pipeline, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
batching goes here, ingestion goes here, like in regards to all testing goes here.
Oh, awesome. So I think we have a similar slide to this, but it's not super obvious. So maybe taking something like this and blowing it up and then giving it more detail. Because I think this is just kind of talking about the undercurrents instead of really like getting into the nitty-gritty of what a data pipeline actually looks like, and sort of what this idea of having multiple data pipelines and how messy that looks like it actually is.
Yeah, so it's like, what does CI look like for data workloads? What does CD look like for data workloads?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
I can help you make images if you want, Lisa.
Yeah, as long as you don't, I might just draw it out on a piece of paper
Yeah,
and take
yeah.
a photo.
Draw it out
That's
and
kind
then
of
I'll
the
make
point
it
of
pretty.
the presenter that I'm at currently. Um,
Or feedback, just let me know. I don't mind like helping with
We
it.
approach data operations purely from a DevOps standpoint. Again, it's probably a different school of thought.
mhm,
What the way my team operates is we build all the tools and best practices and we leave it up to the end users. So much of what I'm seeing on this slide falls within the data warehouse, data movement, data management teams, at least within our company scope. And
mhm.
we are responsible for making sure that the Kafka infrastructure is up and running. People have the right way to access Google Cloud Storage, Amazon, S3, and things like that. So we approach it purely from a DevOps standpoint where we know enough about all these things, but we are not experts in the end-to-end data pipeline. But we make sure that our tooling is scalable and people. Okay, I take that back. What we do is we build tools for making the lives of other engineers easier within the data world. And it is separate from database. We have a separate database team and we have a separate data operations team, and both of us together support all the data warehouse, data movement, data, all the data word stuff.
Yeah, I think that's quite a valuable perspective to keep in mind, because when I think about the type of audience this might go to, realistically in their organization, they'll take on that role, right? They're not going to start becoming data engineers all of a sudden. And they need to really think to themselves, okay, now I understand all of this stuff, but where do I go with it, right? How do I approach this topic and how do I start that conversation? Do you feel like having that sort of data engineering basics is valuable, or should we go straight into kind of like, okay, this is maybe what your team's perspective is in the organization. Here's the bare minimum. We're not going to go too deep into it, just kind of what you need to know. Or do you think that knowledge is something that is really helpful? And if so, which pieces of that knowledge?
I think this is a great 101. What I was referring to is, I think, more relevant for an audience which already knows or has 2 or 3 years of experience in this space. So I think this high level is definitely valuable. And maybe there are nuances to what a platform actually means, and different people might refer to a platform in different ways. So I think maybe if we can define what we are referring to as a data operations platform, that might also help with level setting.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea, actually. Instead of starting off with this as sort of here's data ops and here's DevOps and here's what a data pipeline is and all this stuff, just taking a moment to sit there and go, okay, how are you defining data ops in your organization, and what does that actually look like from a team standpoint? What does that look like from an ownership standpoint? Instead of going straight into these different things, so that people can really understand their position if they want to get into a role like this, what that looks like. Fantastic. I think we won't spend too much time on this, but one of the things that I'm a little bit concerned about is that when, I'm sure as you guys know, talking to data engineers, discussing these things like, infrastructure as code, or like, leveraging YAML files and GitOps, like this is all stuff that, and Docker, I think even just containerizing stuff can be daunting for somebody from a data standpoint, but for a DevOps engineer, this is really basic in my opinion. And so I'd love to understand too, if there's any better way to frame these so that we can make it more appealing to what a DevOps engineer is. So is it, instead of discussing that you can declare stuff, maybe what to declare? Is that kind of a better pivot, do you think?
Yeah, I think what to declare and then the benefits of it. Like why would I want to do this compared to what I've been doing in the past?
Yeah.
It's like, especially in regards to like environment management, like, oh, you might want to use declarative programming because like your configuration might look different from production than versus like staging or even your dev. Just breaking basic things like that down helps a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because I think that if we think about, say, maybe doing like declarative data infrastructure, maybe there's some implications understood that maybe it's just best practice or good hygiene, but maybe there's not much of a deep understanding of how it can break a data pipeline to not have it be reproducible, right? To have results for like skewed and forked. And a lot of those sort of effects maybe are things that are outside of the scope of view of what a DevOps team might look like.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this boils down to complexity. A lot of tutorials that I seem to watch about like running data workloads on like or just focusing on data ops tends to have very intro basic level things to where it's like I'm not really sure or sold on why I should be using declarative programming versus when you get to complicated workloads, it 100% makes you have a better understanding of why you would use that. So yeah, like you said, having the use cases where maybe there was a more complex setup, not too complex to where it loses people, but showing
Mhm.
how the pipeline will break based off of not using declarative programming works. Just even walking through that really quickly helps with like this is a scenario. This is how it looked before. This is why it broke. This is what a declarative, configuration file might look like afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, that in itself would make a great blog post for us, to
Yeah,
be honest.
actually.
Definitely keep that top of mind. And, Kara, if you're interested in contributing some sort of material like that, we'd love to push it, or, running, I think even an individual workshop just on that, I think is a really fantastic thing.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. So I'll write that down.
Yeah. Um, let's see. We're not going to get too much into the rest, but I think we'll save the data on Kubernetes stuff and cloud native stuff probably for another time, for the sake of time in this meeting. But I think that there's a lot of depth that could be had here, and maybe my concern is, even just getting to the point of understanding something as complex as Airflow, or Apache Unicorn, like all of these specialized tools, and then this additional layer of then deploying them on Kubernetes as well, right? I think that there's a lot of stuff that I would probably want to watered down here, like why do these orchestrators exist and why they're special for data work versus just the fact that they exist in general and that they can be deployed on Kubernetes instead.
Yeah. So who's the target audience for this part again? Because you
So
mentioned there.
it's still the same audience. It's still DevOps engineers.
So what you would want to do is tell them this is very similar to like a CD pipeline, because really all it is just stateful programming. So if you think of it from, I'm trying to remember exactly because we use Tecton pipelines, but
Yeah.
because we already use like, what is it, Argo CD, and it's basically, think of it as just like a specialized GitOps just for data work is really what it is.
Yeah. I think that's a really great way to frame it, actually. I'm writing that down. My notes are getting a little unwieldy here. I'm glad that this meeting's recorded so I can go back. Okay, fantastic. I think for the rest we can skip it, but that's kind of the main points that I wanted to go to, and I think it's more than enough to really get people interested in and jump started on this. So yeah, thank you for all the fantastic feedback. I'm really happy to have such incredibly smart people here to provide this insight, and I think the fact that even I need this feedback at this point, I think speaks to all of the holes in the knowledge that we currently have in the field. So I'm really happy to have you all here. Victor, I know that you sent me a blog post as well. I was wondering if you wanted to discuss it in today's meeting, or if you wanted to present and talk about it a little bit more.
Sure. That's not a blog post per se. That's just a quick starting point, I would say.
Yeah.
Just want to get you and Roseanne to see whether it's something that we want to explore at this point. Do you want to share it?
Yeah, if we could. There we go.
So
Love it.
yeah, it's pretty long. So I think there's too much content. So if we turn out to be a blog, it need to be shorter and more concise. But I don't want to remove the information for now because it will miss the information I want to to pass on. So the presentation you showed earlier, that's for data engineer. This is not for data engineer for sure. This is for I think for this group, which is to create the next step or the infrastructure for DataOps for data engineer to use. But yeah, it's not for the audience. Is not data engineer themselves. So if you look at basically the first, actually, why don't everybody just read under the title? That's really the starting point.
Okay, I'm just going to read it out loud really quickly so that we're all on the same pace. In a way, traditional data ops is evolving to encompass new use cases, potentially transforming into what we might call info ops. For instance, GitOps was originally developed as a DevOps practice to automate infrastructure and application deployments using Git as a single source of truth. Git repositories, once solely used for storing software code, now serve as the foundation for Kubernetes infrastructure as code solutions like Argo CD and Flux. With advancements in AI/ML, AI can generate software code, much like a human engineer. As a result, code stored in GitHub is becoming a source of data for AI models. What was once a core artifact of DevOps is now deeply integrated into MLOps, ModelOps, and DataOps frameworks.
So that's basically where it all come from. And then the next section is really just a history of DataOps. So you can skip that. It's more of introduction. What is history of DataOps? Then talking about metadata, right? So we know a lot of things like we know GitOps, Argo CD and Flux. We're also creating all data. So it's like everything. You cannot just say the data anymore because data is kind of information in the AI model, and code itself, the software code itself, become data, right? Because your training model to learn about how data store data basically. So this is just describe what the importance of metadata, and yeah, and this is really just really quick thought, and yeah, kind of very rough at this point, may not be all correct. And then next section is just a thought about how DevOps, DataOps, ModelOps work together. because in the past, when traditional DevOps frameworks like Jenkins, right, is known to be, the really popular, but still kind of bulky and not kind of as nimble as some of the newer frameworks. But it's I think there's a need for all of them to be able to have some role to play in the DataOps workflow, because, for example, Jenkins is managing the code pipeline in a way, right? So this is so once they generate the code, it will be learned by AI model, which in turn will generate new code, right? So if Jenkins doesn't get involved in the whole workflow, then it's kind of be the purpose of DevOps if you cannot be part of that DataOps process. Yeah, and then go to the next section. So if you look at this, actually for this one, I actually have something else to share here. So when we're talking about the audience, typically, if you search for DataOps and public cloud, you'll find things like this. I'll post in the chat. They are, to be a certified DataOps engineer, you probably need to get this certification, professional data engineer from Google, or this AWS certified data engineer. That's what typically you get when you try to be trained to learn DataOps, right? That's typically what you get. However, the problem for those are predefined cloud-specific infrastructure and CI/CD pipelines, and and anything beyond that, the data DataOps pipeline usually is just an extension of the DevOps pipeline that's specific for that cloud. It's okay. I think that it's not a bad, but if you want your workload to be kind of portable, right, from private cloud to public cloud and between different public cloud, you do want to be able to be kind of cloud neutral. Right. So this section just talking about, you want to be cloud neutral, right? So the end result, yeah, if you want to read that again, I know maybe not necessary. That's the idea, right? So DataOps is more than just the traditional DataOps. That's why we might want to call it InfoOps, because it's information in every aspect of the including DevOps and ModelOps. And of course, I'll also extend it to the end, which is not necessary. This is more if you go to the further below the conclusion, going to the information theory. If you look at information theory, Shannon's information theory, one of the concepts you see is called mutual information, right? So think about this, right? Because when you create data, when model learns from data, it captures data in a way that's actually stored in the model, right? So how I won't go into detail. Yeah, it's like another interesting. So this is beyond the DataOps realm. This is more about how to extend. Once we have the ecosystem where DataOps is including not only the traditional DataOps in the domain, but also the DevOps and ModelOps. It's possible to actually look into this kind of newer concept of information theory to extend even that theory itself.
Oh my gosh, this is fantastic. Before we get into the content, I just want to say to the room, this is not the norm in terms of having so much information for a blog post. Do not set yourself to Victor's standard. Like Victor is even more prolific than I am. So I don't want people to read this and be like, oh my gosh, Victor came out with this amazing blog post. Now I have to do the same thing. And this is the, no, I think that this is really amazing work that you've got together. And I love the sections that you've broken up into, and the idea of using InfoOps as this like sort of starting point and ending point for you to bring it full circle back into these concepts. I do think that we can break this up into multiple blog posts, so we don't have to get it all in one blog post, but we can, I think, have a few eyes on it to really like take a deeper dive. I'm happy to be a reviewer on this. I'm not sure if there's anybody else who wants to give this a read through and provide some comments. I see a hand up from Vivek, so maybe Vivek and I can tag team this, and then we'll maybe by the next meeting have like some comments in, and then we can start editing it to publish on the website. And I love to see it as well. And we can also do like a quick webinar, just kind of discussing some of the ideas here as well. And maybe like once we've started reading it, doing like a dedicated birds of a feather session so that we can pick Victor's brain a little bit more on it, because I think that it's really exciting. Roxanne, I guess the best way to add people in is just, I guess, linking this in the meeting notes and then tagging Vivek and I. Is that the best way?
I think this is Victor's document, so I think he would have to share it. But yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, you can move the content into your public document, that folder.
Sure.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
yeah, I said it's really rough. It's not.
Yeah.
There's a lot of definitely a lot of brush. I mean, it's not ready for publication at this point.
Yeah, no, I think that what you've got is great. And one of the great things about having the body down is that now, we can kind of come in and we can help create some of the discernment around it. The number one step that you've got is the hardest one, which is just getting the ideas down. And now that it goes through this iteration process, we can really help you refine that message, if that makes sense. So you've done some really great work here. I don't want to discount that at all. And then I'm gonna, Vivek, do you have your email that we can add here? And then we'll put you in the meeting notes.
You could add me as well. I didn't say anything, but I would love to read the article.
Fantastic. Kira, this is your first meeting and I'm scared that we're gonna dump just a ton of crap on you to do, which is not my intention. Can you put your email down in the meeting minutes as well?
Sure.
Or in the yeah. Can I tag that? Oh my gosh. Why am I? To those of you who are watching this recording, and those are you here right now, I swear I can use technology.
I think if I add him to the doc and then
Yeah, you have to add
I'll
him to
do it, don't worry.
I truly am useless without Roxanne, to be honest. Yeah, so I think one of the things too is because it's a hefty doc, I think that what's going to end up realistically happening is that all three of us are going to read the first half by next week, and then nobody will look at the second half. So I'm going to start kind of from the second half and skim through the first half and not concentrate on the comments so that we have more even distribution of resources. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, we can move this also to the CDF drive and create a copy and then make sure that Victor kind of stays as the owner as well. But thank you so much for putting this together. I think that it's fantastic for us to look at. So one of the things too, before we move on, Victor, is there anything that you would like feedback on in particular? Like if there's anything that you wanted us to concentrate on as we're going through this, whether it's like, say, helping you add in some graphics or like some links and some references, or to, really think about some of the ideas that you've put in there and things like that.
I think it does need when it comes to metadata and catalog. I think you probably get the best in position to add a section about catalog, which I have not done yet.
Okay, fantastic. I'm happy to do that. All right. And this actually brings things quite around full circle, because a lot of the information science and library science has deep ties to the cataloging space as well. So it helps us really hammer in some of these ideas. So for the last bit of this meeting, before I open it up to the floor for us to just talk about whatever we want, last time we discussed what the best format for a meeting like this was, because I think me going through the agenda is great, but I think the reason why I like these meetings, and I'm sure, I'm not the only one, is sort of the discussions that we have around our opinions on these sort of things. And, even just getting the feedback on the, presentation. I think that like what we had there was quite a bit of gold, to be honest. And I'd love to have more conversations like that without dumping work on people. And so we discussed this idea last time of either having somebody come in and present something formal, which can happen. But, there seemed to be a little bit more interest in doing more of a birds of a feather thing, where we have a dedicated topic where we spend maybe like 20 minutes or 30 minutes in that meeting discussing it. And we kind of go over our experiences. Maybe one of us prepares like a little overview on that material, or we just like kind of have it in the Slack. So I wanted to go really straightforward with the next meeting and let people choose a topic between these two. These are very vague by definition, and sort of the reason why is because, recently I helped do some of the program stuff and review abstracts for not just the CDF, but also open AI and data in the Linux Foundation. And a lot of talks fell into either of these two topics, which was CI/CD in AI/ML deployment, or AI/ML being leveraged in CI/CD pipelines. And I think both are really exciting topics for people to get into. And so I'd love to kind of do a quick round and see for the next meeting if there's one that people would enjoy speaking on over the other, or if there's another topic even that you would want to bring up. I'm happy to do that as well, even if it's something as vague as like defining DataOps even. I think that's an interesting birds of a feather that we should have eventually. I will start first, and then maybe, Vivek, you can go after and we can do a quick round. Personally, I think CI/CD and AI/ML is a little bit more interesting to me at the moment because I think it's something that we're currently talking about a lot. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I think for the next meeting or two, CI/CD and AI/ML will be more actionable and insightful to companies because I think AI and ML and CI/CD, at least based on my opinion, it's still very in its early phases. But I think both are valuable, but I personally am more interested in CI/CD in the AI/ML space.
Kiara, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I agree with both you and Vivek. I think that CI/CD and AI and machine learning is a great topic for next week or next time.
And Victor?
Yeah, bringing them on. I guess both it was be interesting. But I guess whichever has existing solution will be easier. I mean, from CD foundation perspective, I think you're right that how to apply CI/CD, including Jenkins, the Capton, and then maybe the cataloging solution that from your company, how to apply those solutions in AML is probably easier to start with.
Yeah. And Jesse, do you want to type in your preference in the chat and I can read it out?
Depending on how the conversation goes, I can copy the transcript and maybe there would be a blog post, not for every topic, but
Yeah, well, the way I think of this is it can be a sort of like a mini podcast. I don't want to put that pressure on folks to be like, oh, now I have to say something interesting. But just generally from the basis of what would you want to talk about that you don't get to talk about usually, right? What is something that you would personally be excited to discuss now that we've forced all these people into a room together and they have the chance to kind of get some fun ideas out. And so it's not like a definitive, we're going to write the guide here in this one session on CI/CD, but just sort of discussing maybe some use cases or some resources that we found or some interesting ideas that we've run into and explore some of that with fellow people as well. Jesse has also added here that I am the relative novice here, but I would say CI/CD and AI/ML makes more sense to me in terms of being a baseline prior to mixing up the process with AI/ML. I think that everybody is in unanimous agreement. I don't know if we'll ever hit this again, depending on what kind of topics I decide to pitch here. So we're going to go with CI/CD and AI/ML, and we're going to spend probably, I would say, the first 10-15 minutes of next session going over any like updates that are required. And then I'll bring up some topic discussions just to kind of get us started, and I'll post them in the Slack as well. And we're just going to keep it really loose. I'm going to moderate more than speak, and we're just going to spend like a good 30 minutes you know, discussing some of the stuff. And you're more than welcome, like ahead of time to, you know, bring together like an article and post it in the Slack or in the meeting minutes, or just some ideas that you have around it. But yeah, or just, you know, kind of tell us what you've run into as well, so people kind of know. Our next meeting is in 2 weeks. So we do keep these pretty frequently. I don't know if every single meeting will have a birds of a feather, but we do hope that as this group grows, there will be people interested in, you know, having more of these discussion topics for sure. Yeah, I think that's about it for this meeting. I'm happy to open up the floor. We can stop the recording if we want to, just for anybody who wants to discuss some other stuff. Yeah.
I just wanted to show the page.
Yes, right.
CDF.
I'm gonna stop my screen share and you can start yours.
Cool. Can't remember where it is. Is this it? No. So I'm gonna make a more official page because we had the blog post, but it's kind of weird to send people to a blog post after we've started doing things. And so I want a nicer landing page. We talked about it in the last meeting. So people can join, find out what we're doing. This is just a draft, it'll look better. But let me know if you think there's a section that's missing that I should add. So what we're doing, what the curriculum will look like, or what we think it'll look like. Have the meetings, this is the playlist, and then the calendar so they can see all of the meetings and future like things that are happening, either talks or recordings that we had. And then I'll list all the blog posts as well, and then how to reach us in the mailing list and Slack. Yeah, any feedback is welcome. It's a work in progress, so.
Yeah, I would, so one of the things that annoys me a little bit about the page is that my face shows up a little bit too much, I feel. I don't love being the face of the initiative. I think that it should be a group thing. And so if there's a way that we can highlight like some of the members or contributors in a way, I would love to see part of the larger community represented. I don't know if others agree or if they also want to be on the website, but I'd love to have you on there if you want to be on there.
I mean, I can put like, we always have pictures of the program committee. We could do the same thing with people contributing here. I'm happy to do that if people are comfortable, you know.
Yeah, I'm getting a thumbs up.
Cool.
Probably.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, we can get some like kind of contributors there too. And this is probably a down the line thing that we would have to add on top of a landscape. So in the last meeting, we discussed having a DataOps landscape on top of the CDF landscape, but maybe like a resources page for people to go through as well. That seems like a very heavy lift to just tack on, but we'll put it on the backlog at some point to put together a resources list that we consistently add on, or if there's even like just a Git repo that we can help maintain that just has like a README with everything. I think that works too. Yeah. Are there any other pieces of feedback as well? If not, then I think we're good to give some time back to folks here. And thank you, Roxanne, for your hard work in getting that together.
Thank you,
And of
everyone.
course,
It's
yeah,
fun to work with all of you.
exactly. Even though this meeting's, you know, shorter, I think that we covered a lot, to be honest. So thank you all for being so lively either in the morning or in the afternoon. So right, we can end the
Right.
recording. I'll hang back a little bit if anybody wants to chat, but thank you so much for coming.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.